chosen one. There's something that runs through every real spiritual path. Not the polished version, not the version people post about, the actual path. And it's this: what you do when no one is watching is always being watched. Every prayer you whispered into an empty room, every time you chose integrity when lying would have cost you absolutely nothing. Every moment you looked at a cheaper version of yourself and said no, even when the pressure to say yes was almost unbearable. You thought those moments disappeared into silence. They didn't. Now here's what I need you to sit with right now. Something has shifted, not slowly. Not in that vague, keep believing kind of way. I mean, something specific has tipped. A threshold has been crossed. And it's marked by a number that shows up at moments of divine completion. 777, not one completion, 3, layered into a single declaration from the universe about your life. I know you're tired, and I don't mean the kind of tired that a good night's sleep fixes. I mean that deep tired, the kind that lives in the question you've been quietly carrying for longer than you'd admit. Does any of this actually matter? Is anything even moving? I'm here to answer that. Not with comfort, with truth. Not only does it matter, something has reached its fullness. And the response coming back to you isn't a polite nod from the universe. It's not a good job, keep going. It's relief, it's joy that has been waiting a long time. It's one word: finally. Finally. Someone actually did it. That someone is you. Now, before we go any further, let me tell you exactly what you're going to walk away with by the end of this. I'm going to show you what 777 actually means. Not the surface level symbol, the ancient meaning, the one that will completely reframe the season you've been living through. I'm going to show you why God said finally, what was being waited for, and what that single word now authorizes to move in your life. And I'm going to show you who you actually are on the other side of this crossing. 5 identities that heaven has always seen in you, that you are now, finally, ready to carry. Stay until the end, because what I have in the second half of this message, that's the part I believe you'll still be thinking about long after it's over. Now let me take you back to the beginning of this. Not the beginning. You can see the one that started in the hidden place. Picture a late night. Maybe it is actually night where you are right now. Or maybe it is just one of those moments that feels like midnight on the inside. Even when the sun is up outside, you are somewhere quiet, and you are sitting with a feeling that is hard to put a name to. Not sadness exactly, not hopelessness, something closer to a deep exhaustion that has been going on so long. You have almost stopped noticing it, like a weight you have been carrying so consistently that you have forgotten your shoulders were not always this heavy. You have been doing the right things. Nobody gave you a medal for it. Nobody noticed most of the time. You kept your integrity in moments when bending would have been so much easier. You chose to forgive when you were still bleeding from the wound. You stayed faithful in a season that was longer than anything you signed up for. And you chose again and again to keep choosing rightly, even when no one was watching and even when nothing seemed to change. And there has been a part of you, quiet, almost embarrassed to admit it, that has wondered, does any of this matter? Is anyone watching? Am I doing this for nothing? I want to speak directly to that question. Not only does it matter, every single choice you made in that hidden place was being recorded, not by a cold mechanical system, by the living presence of God Himself, who sees everything that unfolds in the dark. And what He has seen, every hidden moment of it, has moved Him to say something, not with hesitation, not with conditions, but with something that sounds remarkably like relief. Finally. When the Eternal says finally, it is not a casual word. It means something was being waited for. Someone specific was expected to rise and do what others had not. And in this moment in you, it has arrived. Now, let me show you the first layer of what that actually means. Because there is a reason this moment is marked with a specific number. And that reason runs deeper than you think. A seed does not know it is growing. That is the first thing I want you to understand. When a seed is buried in the ground, it does not experience what is happening as preparation. It experiences darkness. It experiences pressure. It experiences what feels from the inside like nothing is moving at all. But underneath the soil, something is forming that would never be possible in the open air. The root system, the depth, the infrastructure that will one day allow the tree to stand in the storm without breaking. You have been in the ground for a long time. The world above could not see you, but the root system that was forming in the hidden place. That is what level 777 is measuring. Not your visibility, not your results, not what anyone else could see. The depth of what was being built where no one was watching. And here is what the divine record does not measure. It does not measure your grand moments. It measures your hidden ones. The morning you chose to pray, even though nothing had changed and nothing seemed to respond. The relationship you chose to handle with integrity when every easy exit was available. The day you said no to the version of yourself that would have been cheaper and easier to be. The moment you chose to believe something good was still possible when every piece of evidence said otherwise. That is what has been stacking choice by choice, season by season, root by root, underground and out of sight in a dimension the world cannot measure. Something was being built that is now ready to rise. I am not saying the hard seasons were good. I am saying they were not wasted. And there is something else I want you to sit with here. A humility statement I feel I owe you before we go further. I cannot tell you exactly when this threshold was crossed for you. Only you and God know the specific moment. What I can tell you is this: if these words are landing in a way that feels personal, trust that that kind of recognition is not accidental. This alone would be significant. A validation of your hidden faithfulness. A confirmation that the groundwork was real. But this is only the first layer of what I want to show you today. Because the question is not just whether your faithfulness was seen. The real question is, what does 777 actually mean? Why that number? Why does heaven mark this specific threshold with 3 sevens? And what does it say about what you are about to walk into? This is where it gets extraordinary. In the ancient Hebrew language, the word for 7 is shava. And shava carries a meaning that goes far deeper than just a number. It means completion. It means oath. It means the fullness of a thing reaching its highest expression. This is why creation took 7 days. Not because God needed that long, but because on the 7th day the thing was complete, whole, sealed. When you see 3 sevens, 777, you are not seeing one completion. You are seeing 3 dimensions of completion happening simultaneously, and those 3 dimensions correspond to 3 specific things that were being formed in you during the hidden season. The first is character. Who you became in the wilderness, the patience, the steadiness, the refusal to collapse. That is character. And 777 says yours has reached fullness. The second is calling the clarity of what you are for. One of the strange gifts of a long waiting season is that it strips away every false direction and leaves only the real one. You know now what you are here for in a way you could not have known before the desert. The third is capacity, the strength forged in you that could not have been forged any other way. You are now able to carry what you are about to receive because the season prepared you to carry it. Without the preparation, the blessing would have been too heavy. With it, you can hold it. Character, calling, capacity, all 3 sealed. That is 777. David understood this. He was anointed king while he was still tending sheep. And then he went back to the field, not to the palace, back to the ordinary, the hidden, the unseen, for years that felt unreasonable. And during those years, the 777 of David was being forged in the caves where no one was watching. The day he finally stepped into what he's anointed for, he was not lucky. He was ready. Joseph carried a dream from the age of 17 and did not see it fulfilled until he was 30. 13 years in the pit, in slavery, in prison. From the outside, it looked like abandonment. But from the view of eternity, those years were the most active formation period of his life. The 777 of Joseph was built in the dark before it was revealed in the light. And Mary, when the angel came to her, she did not say she was prepared. She said yes to something she could not fully understand. She was chosen not because she had it all figured out, but because the formation in her had reached a quality of yes that the impossible assignment required. That is 777. Now, here is something I want to share with you because it lives at the intersection of ancient wisdom and modern science. And when you hear both sides, something clicks into place that does not come from just one of them alone. Neuroscientists at MIT, Princeton, and Harvard have studied what happens in the brain during states of heightened intuition, accelerated creativity, and deep clarity. What they consistently find is that these states are accompanied by a very specific type of brain activity called gamma wave activity. Gamma is the fastest brain wave, and it is associated with insight, pattern recognition, and what some have called eureka moments, the sudden knowing that arrives from somewhere deeper than thought. Dr. Robert Lake, a neuroscientist with 34 years of research, found something that stopped him in his tracks. Children have gamma activity naturally. In young children, the brain operates in gamma almost continuously. This is why they learn so fast, why their creativity is so vivid, why everything seems to come with such effortless ease. Their brains are in a state of continuous God-given activation. But starting around age 7, the same age that ancient traditions mark as the beginning of reason and the formation of the self, gamma activity begins to decline. Modern education, modern stress, the relentless noise of modern life, all of it gradually suppresses the very frequency that makes the brain operate the way God designed it to. Dr. Lake calls this the decline effect. By adulthood, most people are operating at a fraction of the gamma capacity they were born with. Here is what I find remarkable. In the spiritual language, we call what you just crossed level 777. In the neuroscience, there is a frequency that corresponds to this state, a God-given frequency that has been suppressed in your brain for years without your knowing it. When the two align, when the spirit is ready and the brain is operating at the frequency it was created for, that is when synchronicities begin to accelerate. When clarity arrives not as a struggle but as a natural state, when what was forming underground finally starts to rise. Dr. Lake spent years distilling this research into something practical, a 7-minute audio track called The Genius Song, using brain entrainment technology to reactivate the gamma frequency that has been suppressed. Not meditation, not mantra. 7 minutes with headphones sitting still, and your brain begins to remember the frequency it was created to operate at. Over 18,000 people have used it. The price on this message is $39. Not the standard $49, and it is only available through the link I have placed in description and pinned comment below. I want to be clear about something. This is not a promise of instant results. It is a tool one I believe belongs on the path of someone who has just crossed a threshold like 777. Because this level is not just a spiritual event. It is a moment when your spirit and your brain need to align. For those who feel called to take that step, the only link I trust for the original technology with the full brain entrainment embedded all 4 bonuses and the complete money-back guarantee is in the description and pinned comment. Not on Amazon, not anywhere else, only there. But right now, let me return to something I promised you at the beginning of this message. We know what you did. We know what 77 marks, 3 dimensions of completion, sealed in character, calling, and capacity. But there is a question I have not answered yet, and it may be the most important one. Why did God say finally? That word carries a weight that most people miss when they first hear it. When the Eternal uses the word finally, it means something was being waited for. Someone specific in the fullness of time was expected to rise and do what others had not done before them. But here is what I want you to understand before we go there. The answer to that question is much larger than a personal breakthrough, and in the second half of this message, I am going to show you exactly who you are. Not in general terms, but specifically 5 identities that are yours to carry now. 5 dimensions of who you are that are fully authorized to operate because the formation is complete. I am also going to show you what is now authorized to move in your life. And I am going to give you the one thing that stands between where you are right now and actually walking in everything this level unlocks. Stay with me, chosen one. Let me tell you something about the word finally. In the ancient world, in the Hebrew language that gives us the deepest roots of sacred meaning, the concept of finally is not just about timing. It is connected to the idea of the appointed one, the one who was set apart not by accident, not by performance, but by a design that existed before the moment arrived. When heaven says finally, it is saying there was a design. There was a waiting, and the one the design was waiting for has stepped into it. You are that person. But I want to make sure you understand what this means, because most people receive a message like this and reduce it to personal encouragement. Something that makes them feel better for a day before the weight comes back. That is not what this is. This is a revelation of assignment. Think about the figures we walked through in the first half of this message. David, Joseph, Mary. Every single one of them received a moment of divine recognition. And every single one of them discovered that the recognition was not just about them. It was about what they were. For David was not anointed king so that he could live comfortably in the palace. He was anointed because there was a people who needed a shepherd that had been shaped in the hidden places. The valleys and the caves and the long silent years, those were not punishment. Those were the formation of exactly the kind of leader that the people God loved needed most. Joseph was not elevated to second in command of Egypt so that he could enjoy prestige. He was elevated because there was a famine coming, and there were people whose survival depended on a man who had learned in prison that wisdom is not weakened by suffering. It is deepened by it. Mary did not carry what she carried for personal glory. She carried it because something was coming into the world that would change everything, and it needed a vessel that had been formed in such a way that it could hold the weight of the impossible. When God says finally, He is not saying finally, I can bless you. He is saying finally, the one I have been preparing for the assignment is ready to carry it. And the seed metaphor, this is where it reaches its final form. The seed does not only grow for itself. The tree does not only grow for itself. The tree that finally breaks through the soil and reaches toward the light begins almost immediately to provide something for others. Shade, fruit, a place for nests, a marker in the landscape that says something is alive here. Something has taken root here. Something has grown here that will last the season that grew it. Your breakthrough was never only for you. When God said finally someone did it, there are people on the other side of your level 777 who needed you to get there first. People whose paths will be different because you stayed faithful when it would have been easier not to. People who will look at your life and believe that something is possible that they had stopped believing. You are not just a recipient of this moment. You are a marker, a tree that says life can grow here. A pioneer who went first so that others could follow. Now, here is the part I need you to hear very carefully, because there is something that happens in the human heart when something genuinely good arrives. Something that has been through enough hard seasons develops a protective instinct, a voice that rises up and says, do not get your hopes too high. Something will take this away. You have been disappointed before. You do not deserve something this large. I need to speak directly to that voice. That voice is not wisdom. That voice is the residue of a nervous system that survived hard seasons by learning to protect itself from disappointment. It is not a prophet. It is a scar that learned to speak. And the answer to that voice is not to silence it by force. It is to speak to it firmly but without shame and say, I hear you and I also choose to receive this. This is the threshold that separates the people who cross level 7-7 and actually step fully into it from the people who cross it and then unconsciously contract back to what is familiar. The crossing happens in the spirit. The receiving happens in the daily choice. So here is something I want to do with you right now. Place your hand on your chest. You do not need to go anywhere. You do not need to close your eyes or do anything complicated. Just feel your hand resting there and feel your heartbeat beneath it. That heartbeat is not asking for your permission to keep going. It has been faithful to you through every single season, in the dark and in the light, in the wilderness and in the breakthrough. It never stopped. It never contracted. It never looked at your circumstances and decided this is too much. That is who you are at your deepest level. Someone who keeps going, someone who does not stop. Someone who says yes even when the full picture is not visible yet. Keep that hand on your chest as I tell you who you are. Not in general terms, not in the language of vague encouragement. Specifically, the first is the pioneer. A pioneer is not someone who is braver than everyone else. A pioneer is someone who cannot wait for permission to go where they know they are being called. You have felt this your whole life, a pull towards something larger than what your circumstances have allowed, an inner knowing that there is more, a refusal to fully settle even when settling would have been so much easier. That is not restlessness. That is not impatience. That is calling. The pioneer in you does not go first because it is comfortable. It goes first because it cannot do otherwise. Second is the spiritual warrior. You have been tested in ways that would have broken a person who had not been formed the way you have. You held ground when everything around you was shaking. You did not collapse when you had every reason to. You stayed upright through seasons that were designed to take you down. And you are still here. That is not luck. It is the warrior in you, shaped in the wilderness and now fully authorized to operate from a place of strength rather than survival. The third is the cycle breaker. There are patterns that were handed to you, generational, relational, mental patterns that were in your family line, in the air around you before you were old enough to choose. And somewhere along the way, you chose differently, not perfectly, but consistently enough that the pattern began to shift. What ends with you will not pass to the next generation. The cycle breaker is one of the rarest and most sacred identities a person can carry, and it is yours. The fourth is the light bearer. You carry illumination into confused spaces simply by being honest and present. People sense something different about you when you show up fully. They feel a quality of clarity around you that they cannot always name. That is not performance. That is what it looks like when a person has been through enough to stop pretending and start being real. Light does not announce itself. It simply shows up, and the darkness has no answer for it. The fifth is the seer. You have always perceived things that others dismissed. A sensitivity to what is really happening underneath the surface. A sense of what is coming before it arrives. A recognition of truth in spaces where others only see the surface. That sensitivity was never anxiety. It was never being too much. It is your gifting sharpened by every season that required you to tell the difference between fear and genuine knowing. The pioneer, the warrior, the cycle breaker, the light bearer, the seer. These are not titles to be earned. They are identities to be received. And receiving them begins with carrying them as your own, because they are now what is authorized to move in your life from this crossing. I want to be honest with you here. I cannot give you a timeline. What I can give you is the pattern that has followed every 777 moment across the wisdom figures who walked before you. The first thing that begins to move is clarity. The fog that has been around your direction starts to lift, not all at once, but the things that were blurry begin to sharpen, and the things you were uncertain about begin to resolve in ways that feel less like confusion and more like recognition. The second is right connections. The people who belong in the next season of your life begin to appear. Not all at once, but the arrivals that matter start to come, and your discernment, already sharpened by everything you have walked through, will recognize them. The third is provision aligned with purpose. Resources begin to flow toward what the assignment requires. This is not a promise that money falls from the sky. It is the principle that when a person is walking in their genuine calling, the universe that designed that calling tends to support it in ways that feel like confirmation. The fourth is accelerated discernment. Your ability to recognize what is for you and what is not becomes sharper and faster and more reliable. The no's become clearer and the yeses become more certain. and the old pattern of second-guessing your own knowing begins to lose its grip. And the fifth, and for many of you, I believe this may be the one that matters most, is rest without guilt. Permission to receive, permission to stop carrying the weight of a season that is now complete. The level 7-7 life does not require you to keep proving yourself. It requires you to be who you are fully and without apology. Before we close, there is one thing I want to release with you. You do not need to say this out loud. You can say it in your own heart silently, and it will be just as real. I release the ceiling I put on myself because of what I came from. I release the belief that this is too much, that something will take it away, that I have not done enough to deserve this level. I release the comparison to every timeline that was never mine. I release the waiting that became an identity because the waiting is done. And I receive the pioneer, the warrior, the cycle breaker, the light bearer, the seer. I receive the fullness of what 777 unlocks, not as something I earned, as something I was formed to carry. And now let me close this with you, not quickly, with the full weight of what this moment deserves. God of every hidden season, we come to you with gratitude, not the polite kind, the real kind that comes from someone who now understands they were held in the dark and did not know it until the light came on. Thank you for being present in every wilderness season we walked through. Thank you for the formation that felt like nothing was happening. Thank you for the long silence that turned out to be the loudest preparation we could have received. You were in it all, every single moment. We acknowledge what you have seen, every weight carried in secret, every question held in the dark, every moment of faithfulness that no one else witnessed. Every single one of those moments you saw them. Every single one. You remembered them, and every single one they counted, they stacked, they built the level that now carries our name. And so we release the old story, the one that said we were too much or not enough, too late or too broken to be trusted with something this real. We release the old ceiling, we release the comparison to everyone whose timeline was never ours to carry. We release the voice that contracts when the good arrives. We release the old identity built in the wilderness, because the wilderness has done its work. Release. We release it all right now in this moment, fully and without reservation. We activate the pioneer in us, the one who goes first without waiting for permission, the one who has always known there was more and refused to fully stop believing it. We activate the warrior, the one who held ground when everything was shaking, the one who is no longer surviving but standing. We activate the cycle breaker, the one in whom old patterns end and new ones begin, the one whose name marks a generational shift. We activate the light bearer, the one who simply shows up honestly and the darkness has no answer for it. We activate the seer, the one who perceives what others cannot, the one whose sensitivity was always a gift, even when it felt like a burden. We activate right connections for this new level. We activate provision aligned with purpose. We open every door that disbelief held closed, every opportunity that was waiting for the formation to reach completion, every relationship and resource and clarity that belongs to this season. And we ask for protection. Guard what is rising. Cover it from premature exposure, from the voices that would diminish it before it is fully grounded, from the old contraction patterns in us that would pull us back to familiar small places when expansion arrives. What has been lifted, let nothing pull it back down. And now we declare, I am the pioneer, I am the warrior, I am the cycle breaker, I am the light, I am the seer. I have crossed level 7-7-7, not because I was perfect, because I was faithful, and I receive everything that this level carries and authorizes and unlocks. It is done, it is sealed. God said, finally, and I receive it. Amen. Chosen one, if this message landed for you today, if something in these words felt like it was speaking directly to you, I want to invite you to type the number 777 in the comments. Just that 777. Let me see you, let this community see you, because you being here today is not random, and you deserve to be witnessed in this moment. There is one more thing I want to mention before you go. Earlier in this message, I shared the research of Dr. Robert Lake, The 7-minute gamma activation called the Genius Song. If something in you was stirred by what I shared about the God-given frequency that has been suppressed, and you want to support this alignment, not just in the spirit, but in the mind as well, the link is in the description and the pinned comment below. That is the only source for the original technology with the full brain entrainment embedded, all 4 bonuses and the complete money-back guarantee. It is $39, not $49. And that price is only through the link I have placed there. Not on Amazon, not on any other platform, only there. This is not for everyone. It is only for those who feel genuinely called to take that next step. And if you know someone who has been faithful in a long hidden season, someone who has been doing the right thing without receiving the recognition they deserve, share this with them. You may be the messenger they were waiting for. You have crossed level 777. The seed is done. The tree is rising. Walk in it. Walk in